So, Susan, we talk a lot about sense and respond versus predict and control, and that comes up in no place more strongly than in strategy. Can you talk about the difference and how that shows up in strategy and how different organizations approach that?
I mean, I think it's important to note that we're not proposing not to have a strategy. Of course, you should know what your goals and objectives are, where you're trying to get to. The difference in bold strategy and leading together is that our feedback loops are much tighter, right? So we are not saying this is our 3-year plan. These are our targets every month, and not deviating from that until you get to month 10, month 10 in the budget, and then have to kill all expenses because you're going over budget, right? That's the way that it used to look in organizations that I'm sure that all of us are familiar with. The idea that the future emerges as we walk along the path is really what we're trying to indicate here with the idea of bold and emergent strategy, and creating the conditions and the practice within your organization to do regular collective reflection, retrospectives, have a more agile approach to building product and a more agile approach to testing initiatives, is the main difference in this way of thinking about how your organization can both unearth its unique potential, because if we're working in this way, we're not limiting the potential by having a pejorative target on everything. And at the same time, it's allowing us to learn to listen more to what is happening, what the organization needs, and how we can impact what happens next. And Brent, I know that you think a lot about this in your client work, and you've got sort of 3 elements to the strategic planning process that you offer to the organizations that you help lead together. Can you talk a little bit about those?
These are present in both predict and control and sense and respond. It's just how they show up in each one changes. So the 3 steps for every strategy planning process, there's a sensing step, there's an aggregating step, and then there's a planning step. And so in predict and control, it tends to be that the sensing, which is the collecting of data and information, there's a small group that will go out and do that. And then they'll come together, maybe 6 people in a room, and they'll aggregate their data. And then both those steps are done pretty quickly. And then there's a really long planning process that most of us are familiar with extensive document creation, extensive budget creation. So that's the traditional predict and control model. The sense and respond model takes sensing and aggregating and expands those and shrinks the planning phase to what you were saying, Susan. So sensing, instead of having a small number of people doing sensing, how can we bring the entire organization, or maybe even people outside the organization, into the sensing process, asking the questions and collecting data, helpful data. And then the aggregating, rather than having a really small group of people aggregating, how do we have everybody participate in the aggregating phase of bringing that together, which there are a number of really beautiful processes. We, all of us, do work with liberating structures as one example of how we can do a lot of aggregating with a big group of people. And then planning becomes the lightest touch possible, to the point that you were making, Susan, of quick feedback loops. So after we've done all the sensing and the aggregating, what's required, and right now, not what's maybe required 6 months from now, 12 months from now, but what's required now. And if we can go do that thing right now, whatever it is, then that's all the plan we need, is what we're going to do next week. And then we continue to sense until something changes. And when something changes, we go through the process again. So in traditional organizations, sense, aggregate, and plan normally happens on an annual basis, where the sense respond plan or sense aggregate plan in a sense and respond world could happen weekly. It speaks again to that fast feedback loop and the lightest touch possible on the end to replace that really full planning process that we're used to. And maybe to just expand on this a little bit more, Travis, we talk in the book about holding plans lightly. So what do we mean by that when we use that phrasing?
I mean, I think we were all given a masterclass from the universe on holding plans lightly with COVID-19 over this last year, right? Because all great plans hit a brick wall on that in most organizations. So we have to offer what we think is going to work. We hold this and we think it's going to work. And the data from the real world comes back in and shows us where we are, right? And the reason this whole sense and respond works better in this dynamic, fast changing world is because we're really in a complex or a chaotic world and not just a complicated one where we can put all the pieces together, right? From building on the work of Snowden from the Kinefin framework. It's a phenomenal framework to check out, to understand why these new ways of showing up and building strategy are so much more important, and why all our best laid plans we should really hold lightly and adjust often.